Welcome to the second part of valvular heart disease. In the first part, we have seen the general definition, the types, stenosis and regurgitation, and we have started up with mitral stenosis, which is most common valvular disease known. Second is mitral regurgitation, that is the valve present between the left atrium and left ventricle, mitral valve, showing presence of regurgitation, that is moving back of the blood from ventricles to the atrium. And how do you define mitral regurgitation? That is an incomplete closure of mitral valve during the systole of ventricles. Left ventricle, when the left ventricle will show systole, there is contraction. The blood is supposed to get pumped into the aorta, and the mitral valve is supposed to get completely closed so that no blood goes back into the left atrium. But as this valve doesn't closes immediately, what happens is it causes small amount of blood to regurgitate back into the left atrium. Now, what is the etiology? Uh, Rheumatic disease is the principal cause. Second is mitral valve collapse. There is a prolapse of mitral valve. Like the supporting structures of valve are not functioning properly. So it will move a little bit from its original position. Dilatation of left ventricle and mitral valve ring, like in cases of cardiomyopathy and coronary artery disease. So there is a damage to valve cusp and cortex. That's in the case of endocarditis and rheumatic heart disease. It may also cause ischemia or infraction of papillary vessels. Now about its pathophysiology, let us understand. As you can see, during the systole of left ventricle, there is a regurgitation of blood during the systole to the left atrium. This extra amount of blood, which stays as a preload when the diastole of left atrium will start, which will cause left atrial dilatation and hypertrophy because extra amount of blood need to be pumped to the left ventricle. This in turn will create a back pressure on the pulmonary circulation, causing pulmonary congestion. This in turn will cause right ventricular failure, and as the amount of blood which was coming in the left ventricle reduces due to some amount of blood goes back into the left atrium, the cardiac output will increase and cardiac output will decrease, and in order to compensate that cardiac output, there would be left ventricular hypertrophy. So, incomplete closure of mitral valve will lead into backflow of blood to the left atrium. That causes reduction in the volume of blood ejected through or out of left ventricle. That will lead into reduced cardiac output. This reduced cardiac output will lead into left ventricular failure. Whereas left atrial pressure, that is uh, increased left atrial pressure due to more amount of blood coming into the left atrium, will cause left atrial hypertrophy, which will lead into increased pulmonary pressure. That back pressure will lead into right ventricular failure or right-sided heart failure. Pathophysiology is nonetheless same for the mitral stenosis also. Mitral valve prolapse, which is one of the cause for mitral regurgitation. This is also known as floppy mitral valve. And why is this prolapse caused? It can be due to congenital anomalies, congenital cause. The development was not right. Then you have degenerative myxomatous changes. and features of connective tissue disorders like Marfan syndrome are also seen. Mitral valve prolapse in their mildest form will lead into valve remains competent but bulge back into the atrium during systole, in which mild systolic click but not murmur would be heard. In presence of regurgitation valve, click is followed by a late systolic murmur, which lengthens as the regurgitation becomes more severe. Okay, now the click is related to the closure of the valve, but the murmur is related to the backflow of the blood to the atrium. And in the severe form, progressive elongation of caudate tendon may occur, increasing regurgitation to caudal rupture, severe regurgitation. So malfunctioning of mitral valve allowed black flow of blood into the left atrium, causes progressive enlargement. Clinical manifestations: fatigue and weakness due to reduced cardiac output, exertional dyspnea and cough due to pulmonary congestion, palpitation due to atrial fibrillation occurs in 75% of patients, edema, ascites, and right side heart failure can also be seen. Signs: atrial fibrillation, cardiomegaly, size of the heart does increases, apical pansystolic murmur with or without the thrill, soft S1 and apical S3 sound is heard. None of this S3 is the murmur sound. Sign, and I've explained why murmur sound is present because of the regurgitation of the flowing of blood back to the chamber of left atrium. Sign of pulmonary venous congestion, having crepitation, pulmonary edema, and effusion. Sign of pulmonary hypertension and right heart failure is also seen. Investigation, again the same investigation as that were in the mitral stenosis, ECG, chest X-ray, echo, Doppler, and cardiac catheterization. ECG will give you an idea about the hypertrophies. Again, hypertrophy can be seen in the chest X-ray, and also the congestion and edema, if present in the lungs, can also be seen. Echo will give you an idea about the filling and emptying of the chambers, and any abnormality of the mitral valve can also be seen. Doppler will give you an exact suggestion that the defect is present or not, and also the quantifies the regurgitation. Is what is the intensity or how much amount of blood is getting regurgitated. So yes, for its management, some medications which are anticoagulant, diuretics, vasodilators are usually prescribed. Usually, surgical valve repair is done, or valve replacement therapy can be adopted. Now, the third type, that is aortic stenosis. Aortic stenosis is present in the aortic valve. This aortic valve is present between ventricle and aorta. So what will happen is the valve won't open completely, as in the case we have considered stenosis, that is incomplete opening of valve. And due to this incomplete opening of valve, the blood is unable to flow freely from left ventricle to the aorta. So the ventricle won't get empty completely. First thing that should be noted. Etiology, uh, in infants, children, and adolescents, congenital aortic stenosis is seen. Subvalvular aortic stenosis in young adults, calcification and fibrosis of congenital bicuspid aortic valve. Rheumatic aortic stenosis is also seen, whereas in middle age to elderly, senile degeneration, calcification of bicuspid valve, and rheumatic aortic stenosis might also be seen. So, rheumatic fever and their complications are commonly seen in heart. So, rheumatic heart diseases are the prominent cause of valvular heart disease. Now, understanding the pathophysiology, As I said, the aortic valve won't open completely, or it would be difficult for the blood from the left ventricle to enter into the aorta because the valve is not opening completely. So, this is the resistance present in front of the blood, and that is the afterload. So, the first of all, the afterload on the left ventricle will increase. This increased afterload eventually leads into reduced cardiac output. This is because whatever that is coming out of the left ventricle is actually going to supply your whole body. So cardiac output gets reduced. In order to compensate the reduced cardiac output, there would be left ventricular hypertrophy. This left ventricular hypertrophy will eventually lead into incomplete emptying of atrium. Why? Because already the amount of blood present in the left ventricle won't allow extra blood to enter into the ventricles again. That is, from atria to ventricle, it won't allow the blood coming from atria because already the left ventricle is having that certain amount of blood, which in turn will lead to pulmonary congestion afterwards. So it's then now we can see stiffening and narrowing of aortic valve. First of all, leads to left ventricular hypertrophy. So compression of coronary arteries might also be seen, which will reduce oxygen supply, and myocardial ischemia may be present. Whereas incomplete emptying of left atrium will lead into pulmonary congestion and eventually into right-sided heart failure. The clinical features, mild or moderate stenosis, usually are asymptomatic. It can be associated with the cardinal symptoms of cardiac output fails to rise the knee. It is exertional dyspnea. That is, if the cardiac output is not sufficient enough to meet your body requirements, what symptoms that you will get? Exertional dyspnea, that is, whenever you exert a bit, you will heavily feel difficulty in breathing. Angina, because as there is increase in the demand of hypertrophied left ventricle. Exertional syncope might also be seen. Sudden death are also seen in such cases, and episodes of acute pulmonary edema. Now the clinical features in we have sign ejection systolic murmur. It is when the systole will occur in the left ventricle, that will lead into ejection of blood into the aorta. But as the valves are not opening completely, it will lead into a murmuring sound. Slow rising carotid pulse. Why it is slow rising? Because the blood filling in the carotid artery is quite slow because carotid artery is a branch of aorta. Thrusting apex speed due to left ventricular pressure overload, narrow pulse pressure, and sign of pulmonary venous congestion. There is crepitation. It is a particular sound that can be heard on auscultation. Crepitus. Investigations, ECG, X-ray, echo, Doppler, and cardiac catheterization can be done to look into the following changes. Under the section of uh, management, usually when the patient is asymptomatic, they are just kept under review. And in cases of moderate to severe stenosis, they are evaluated on a regular basis about the development and further changes in the heart muscles. Symptomatic severe aortic stenosis will need valvular replacement. It can also be from valvulopathy. Obviously, medicines like anticoagulants are. So that is it. We'll continue with the other types in the next section.